remember when the future was exciting and you wanted to be part of it, and it was like something that to look forward to, and now we just scroll through it and pay subscriptions.
Before we get started with today's discussion, I just want to address a viewer comment that noticed the fact that we're drinking beers and, unimpressed with not drinking any hard liquor. So, to which I responded, I think, if I remember correctly, I responded, we are responsible drinkers and we follow the advice of liquor before beer, rather than beer before liquor throw up quicker. So, with the implication being that, we've had our fair share of hard liquor before we responsibly go on to our lighter drinks. But, in light of that, I will drink Japan's basically bottom shelf whiskey right here.
Today's DWWW, which is Drunken Wisdom, Wine and Whiskey.
We did have some wine a bit earlier, yeah.
Well, so
we're not faking the drunken part of this video, just so we're not posers,
I love one of the comments we got, like, Drunken Wisdom, more like drunken idiocy.
Yeah, well, like that. Well, I mean, come on. And that's why I think the title of this video will be the world ended in 2017.
Why 2017? Why specifically?
Yeah, I mean, this is just feeling. This is going to be a completely feelings-based argument. But I've talked with enough people who lived through, who lived through 2017 as adults, and it just feels like a lot of people feel like you seem to confirm this shift. I definitely felt this shift, and other people just felt this shift. Like 2017 is, I feel like a bit before, you can honestly say between 2015 and 2017, sometime between then. But for me, it was definitely 2017, where there was this shift in just this approach to, attitude towards the world in the future. Like, it felt like before, there was fundamentally some kind of subconscious optimism to the future. Right. And it just felt like sometime after 2017, I mean, around that time is when you get the doomer meme.
Right.
So already you're seeing in the collective unconscious of the internet already an attitude shifting of the doomer meme starts coming out in late 2017, 2018, and then now it's like a mainstream meme. So that just indicates how common doomerism is. That it just defines the worldview now. There's the lack of optimism for the future, but before then, and definitely from 2010 to 2015. I felt like there was an overall more or less optimistic feeling about the future.
Yeah, no, there 100% was. I remember back in 2012 and 2013. So my parents got divorced and we had roommates for a while. And one of my roommates was always tech savvy, albeit a little bit of a Redditor, I'll say, the way that he talked about the world. And something he used to do was show me all of the new tech coming out, because he was usually a year or two ahead. Mm-hmm. And I remember him investing or getting a very nice flat screen TV. It might have been a plasma TV in 2012 or 2013. And he was like, Tantra, this is so cool. Look at all these applications that are immediately ready to me. I can watch Netflix. I can go to, I think, Hulu. And maybe Amazon had
that was new back then.
Right, it was new. It was oh my god, I have instant access to media at the click of a button, and I don't even need to wait for a CD to show up at my front doorstep. I'm in.
Now we're bored by this, but the whole CD and doorstep thing, no joke. That's what I remember Netflix when it was not a streaming service, but I remember when Netflix they delivered DVDs to your house.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Because my family early on subscribed to that, and so for really up until even after 2015, right. Before up until the point they discontinued it, because there were some rare movies you couldn't get on Netflix's subscription service for a while that they still offered on DVD.
Right.
When they did, up until I think they canceled the DVD service, but that was their original thing. And I remember my dad would order DVDs from them even when we had the streaming service, just because there were some movies he wanted to watch that you could only get on the DVD
right.
Service, and it's just it's a shame they got rid of that.
Well, there wasn't just Netflix. I think when I was really, really young, there was this thing called Redbox or something. Do you remember it? I forget. People in the comments are totally going to give me shit, but there used to be this sort of like vending machine service that would be in front of the grocery stores.
Oh,
and they would have
that,
milk.
oh yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
You remember that? Remember that? You feel old yet? You were like-
I mean, I remember. I remember nearby my neighborhood park was a Blockbuster. Okay, so you know.
Yeah, I can't believe Blockbuster. Like, I used to go to Blockbuster pretty much like every week with my friend to order. To rent games like Sonic Adventure Battle 2. Sometimes like there would be I wanted to rent like a Halo game for like my friend's Xbox. Jeez, like it's just we've really come a long way, and there's been this exponential change from like the between the 2010s and now that we haven't
Like
really noticed.
what you're talking about, like Blockbuster era, that was 2000s.
Yeah, dude.
But then like we went from that to like 2012, like you could stream stuff on your TV. Like that was new. The Netflix, the transition from DVD service to streaming service, that was a big thing back then.
Yeah.
Like that genuinely impressed you.
Right.
And it was a lot of stuff that was impressing you. Like there was a lot of new stuff, not just physical tech, but just like new apps and stuff. Like it felt like there was constantly new apps coming out. And it felt like I was constantly hearing about new people. Like it felt like every week, like there was like a new group of tech millionaires, and it was an attitude at the time that it just felt like, oh yeah, like anyone can just make an app and become a millionaire overnight. Like this is just like anyone can do this. Like this, like the world's your oyster. I'm sure even you, Anon, you can come up with some app and make $1 million. And we're all going to make an app and make $1 million. It just felt like it was going to keep on growing infinitely. There'd just be so much new cool stuff coming out. And then around between 2015 and 2017, it started contracting. It started being less and less innovation.
Yeah.
That was just like, oh, this is here. This is Uber. Like, for instance, I remember when I was new, like that was up there in the same era as like Netflix coming on your TV for streaming. Like it was just like all these new stuff, and like it felt like the new stuff was going to continue.
Yeah.
And now it's stopped.
Well, the new stuff is now we're just used to it. Like I remember when we were kids. And even in like elementary school, we were like, "Oh, wouldn't it be so cool if we can actually see each other while we're on the phone?" Do you remember the talks like that? I'm like, "Oh, I can't wait for that technology to come out." FaceTime eventually becomes a thing, and I guess it was a little underwhelming because there was already Skype, and you're like, "Oh, okay, I could see my friends on the phone," and now you don't even really think about that kind of thing.
I mean, what I find funny about that is I remember 2008 playing RuneScape, and what I would do is like literally I would call up my friend, or my friend would call up me on our landline phones, by the way, not cell phones, but our landlines. And, like, I would talk to my friend on the telephone while playing RuneScape. And that's what we would do. Like, these days you just go on a Discord call or something and you play together. But, like, it was literally on the telephone. And I remember, like, my parents, and this is, keep in mind, this is 2008. Yeah. This is in the 90s. This is 2008. And still, like, using an actual telephone to talk to your friend while you're playing an online game together.
That was totally my childhood. I mean, because landlines and home phones were pretty much like the norm until about 2007 or 2008. When you wanted to, hang out with your friends, you'd call their parents and basically pray that they'd answer and not be super awkward as you asked for them to pass the phone over to your friend. And then like 2009 or 2010 comes along, and then everyone owns like a Motorola slide phone. Not even a flip phone, but a slide phone. Like, do you remember your first phone?
Yeah, it was one of those shitty ones.
Yeah, it was one of those like shitty slide phones, and I remember having to actually press like the number 5 3 times just to get like an F or something.
So I never used it.
Yeah,
it was crap.
It was crap.
Yeah, I just never used it. In fact, I got in trouble with my parents because like I'll be out late or something, and they were like, "We called you." I'm like, "Oh, I left my phone because I don't use it. It's such a piece of garbage, you know." Yeah. I mean, now the solution to that problem is make your phone so addicting and have everything on it that you're always gonna have it on you anyway.
Yeah.
But what I found funny is I think I was one of the later people to get a smartphone.
Yeah.
I didn't get a smartphone until 2015, after I graduated high school. So my high school year, just so you know, is 2011 to 2015. I was a freshman in 2011, and then I graduated 2015. And in between all of that time, that was when smartphones were starting to become ubiquitous. Like, I was probably one of the last people to get a smartphone. It was already becoming rare to be somebody in this era of 2011 to 2015 to not have a smartphone, which I didn't. Like all of my whole high school experience, no smartphone. But while I was an anomaly, it wasn't so weird.
Mm.
Like people would be like, oh, you don't have a smartphone? But that was the reaction. It was like, oh, you don't have a smartphone? And that was it. Like, whereas now people would look at you like you're an alien for not having a smartphone. Whereas then it was considered a bit odd, but you weren't like alien level tier.
Right. I mean, it was almost a cultural phenomenon that happened in like the early 2010s, because I know that Apple came out with what was it, the iPhone 4G, I believe. And all of a sudden, they became a lot more affordable, and parents were like, oh, you know, what if I handed this technology over to my kids and see what happened? And I got my first smartphone in 2011. I think it was like a Samsung Galaxy or a Samsung Galaxy S. And, like, immediately I was probably relatively addicted to that thing. But when I think of what's accessible to kids now with Reels, TikTok, and videos edited specifically to maintain, like, retention, I think Gen Alpha has it a lot more rough, because the internet was still like relatively innocent back in those days. I mean, it wasn't like 2001 levels of innocent, but yeah, I went through high school with a smartphone. Everyone had one, but if I had met someone like you and like, oh, I don't have a smartphone, I probably wouldn't have found that super weird. Like, oh, your parents are probably just more strict than mine. Whereas now it's like, oh, you don't have a smartphone? Like, what are you, living off the grid or something? Like, what's wrong with you? But honestly, like, good for you. If you're watching this on a desktop right now, you're on top of the world. All you need to do is throw it out in the trash. But
I mean that again, that was the thing. It's just like all this technology was still relatively new then, and it just felt like there was so much potential.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
And at some point, like the reason why I say that it feels like 2017 is where it ends is because we got some point where we got optimistic about the future, where I feel like now we've transitioned to an area where we don't think about the future in terms of its potential. It kind of feels like we are cognizant. It feels like we're collectively cognizant that we are living in a theoretical future, and we're like, really? We got this future? This is the future we got? Like, instead of being at a point where we're continually imagining, well, how can things get better? How can we do... Because that was the state of 2012. That was the state of 2011. It was like, man, this is kind of cool, but, like, imagine this. Imagine this. We could get here. We're no longer talking in terms of imagine this. We're now talking in terms of why did we get this?
Right.
It's almost like we're talking about our own present in the past tense, which hence why I'm inclined, like, obviously I mean in a clickbaity way, but why it feels like, yeah, the world ended in 2017, because it feels like that's the transition point where we went from talking about the future as a future and or as the present as something building up to something more, and now we're talking about the present as though it's this disappointing past tense. And like, why did we get this and not that?
Yeah, I still remember 2017 pretty clearly. I remember like that January I was taking a sculpting class, and everyone was like, oh my god, did you see the news? Like, Trump just got into office. And I remember like, holy shit, Donald Trump is president. That was God, that was 8 years ago, man. I cannot believe it. But like there was like around 2016, 2017, like I was a freshman in college in 2016. So I was like a year after you. You're like 1 year my
yeah, I would have been sophomore then.
Yeah, you would have been a sophomore. And I recall that college it's hard for me to say because I left my hometown. And I knew that things had changed a little bit, but not quite as much as I probably should have, because I went from the Midwest over to the East Coast, whereas you went from the East Coast to the Midwest.
Yeah, very ironic,
yeah,
right? Like, how often did that happen, right?
Yeah, right? So, I mean, like, I studied in Rhode Island, and I recall the very, 2016, 2017, like, rooting for Ben Shapiro, like, fuck SJWs, Jordan Peterson era part of the internet.
Do you remember, what's his name? I forget his name, but like the guy who would sit with he would take a table and he'd be like, prove me wrong on this
Steven
opinion.
Crowder.
Yeah, Steven Crowder. Yeah,
Steven Crowder. Prove me wrong.
I mean, even the politics. Like, I remember there was this notion of like it was a debate back then of like, this is a free marketplace of ideas.
Right.
And the way people were talking about like classical liberalism, like there's still an appeal to the old school culture. It was like now we kind of look back on that already, and it's just like, yeah, dude, how blue-pilled were you back then?
And I was like, right.
You believed in that stuff? Like, back then, that was, like, convincing arguments. That would be like, well, I mean, like, classical liberalism, this. And it's like, well, yeah, of course I believe in these values, freedom of speech and this. And now I think the attitude is just, we look back on all that, and we're just like, wow, like, you were naive enough to believe that's how the game of politics is played?
Well, yeah, I mean, like, certainly a whole bunch of those channels and media outlets were astroturfed at the time, specifically to, like, just contain the rights and keep them from, venturing too far off the Overton window. But nowadays, I can't really think of anybody but really extreme boomers or, like, a specific type of tradcon that worships someone like Ben Shapiro. The Daily Wire is just doing this right now, and it's I don't want to say like I feel schadenfreude or anything, but I don't really take any media seriously. Whereas 8 years ago, it's like, oh wow, the SJWs are wrong, they're really annoying, and obviously too
it was all about dabbing on in the culture war, kind of dabbing, right? Yeah,
and it was like Ben Shapiro actually tried to represent that for a period of time, and then I guess after he revealed himself to be just another part of the establishment, we're like, all right, it doesn't matter where you seem to look in the mainstream media, like none of this is really worth your time. And
what I think is funny is I remember Ben Shapiro's whole thing is like, logic don't care about your facts, and then
facts don't care about your feelings.
Wait, that was his thing?
I know that
facts don't care about your feelings.
That's
right? Okay, that's it. But then I got this. Yeah, I got a reverse. Fuck. See, this is how you can tell this is real drunken wisdom. So yeah, facts don't care about your feelings. But then I think it was AA or somebody else, like Academic Agent or somebody else who did a video about actually it's the other way around. Feelings don't care about your logic, and feelings is actually if you want to appeal to people's what will actually drive them to make political choices, to drive them to political action, appealing to feelings is a much more effective way than to appealing to logical reasoning. Right. But which just goes back to what I was talking about, we used to live in this, how we consider ourselves so naive back then, before we did kind of think, oh, we're logical thinking people, we care about, logic is of course the reason why I do this, whereas now I just feel like we've gotten so on left or right, we're just kind of really, you're thinking with logic for your choices. It's kind of both sides have admitted that no, we vote on our feelings. Yeah, and that's all. And we're pretty open about that at this point.
It's 100% true, and I think ever since I've come to terms with that reality that it's very much your feelings that logic is the slave of emotion. That if something comes up with one of my friends and I know that we vehemently disagree, I usually preface it as we can have this discussion as long as we are respectful of each other and are able to maintain this friendship. But at the end of the day, we are rationalizing a gut feeling that is not going to be resolved through any form of rational conversation, which is why I think a lot of political debate, while fun to watch and very performative, actually participating in it myself would just, you're just I don't know, man, I hold these values, I know what I believe, and it's always a healthy exercise to know why you believe something. But there's so many different ways to interpret geopolitics and how the world works that I don't know, I'm okay, you think you're right, clearly I think I'm right, and I don't really want to, I have dinner to make, man. Fuck you. I don't have time for this. So that's why I don't waste my time with it. But I think it was thanks to people like you who really made me see that I had a little shred of hope last year. Then okay, I'm not really interested in mainstream politics, but it seems like something might happen. Mm-hmm. Something might change. Holy shit. And nope, nothing happened. Nothing.
Well, actually, something I will say something kind of interesting is happening now. Incidentally, in that, in some sense, in the bigger scheme of things, nothing is changing. Trump becomes president, and he's maintaining the status quo, not releasing the Epstein files, stuff like that. But what's interesting about the whole Epstein files thing is this is the one thing that his base is actually pushing back hard.
Yeah.
His base seemed to be a bunch of sycophants who will go along with whatever he does. And I think Trump got really used to manipulating his base by being like, whatever I do, you will believe in the 4D plan or whatever, come up with some cope about how actually I'm going to do what you want me to do.
Yeah.
And, like, recently, even his own base is, like, pushing back hard. Like, that's the most interesting thing politically that has happened in years for me, is seeing the actual Trump base push back on Trump with the Epstein file stuff.
I really, like, I just looking at it, and I haven't even done so very much, but it's pretty obvious to me that if they don't show the real files or present some kind of evidence that doesn't, that looks real, if they don't do that, I think it's over. I think it's completely like all that MAGA stuff. It's over. It's done.
I don't think it will be over, but I think it will do deep damage.
Yeah.
I really don't think it will be over.
Yeah.
But I do think that will cause a huge rift.
That
would definitely be a critical hit. To use video game language, that's a critical hit to them. That's big damage to Trump, right? Because I really do think when Trump was like, "You're still talking about this Epstein guy," I really think he thought he could gaslight his fans into being like, "Yeah, what's the mainstream media doing, trying to persecute Trump?" Yeah. And like, I think he himself is shocked that like he couldn't gaslight his base with that.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty. I could probably do my research a lot more. But who's the girl that he was working with? Her name starts with a G. She's like.
Oh, Ghislaine Maxwell.
Yes, Ghislaine Maxwell. Like I think that she's saying that she's going to testify, but now like in the news it's like Trump's name might actually be in the files, and it's just like, dude. This is political theater right here.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But again, like if you're watching this video, you're of the people who are like, politics is politics, but at the end of the day, like they don't really give a shit about us. Just eat your popcorn, just enjoy.
But I mean, I will say, trying to get this video back on the topic of discussion. No problem. It's just that like. Now we're so cynical even about politics itself. Where they go back in 2012 and you really did think if you just voted the right person. And you kind of, when we were doing the preparation for this before we were recording, you were kind of saying it really feels like around when Trump was, basically when Trump was entered the nomination for presidency.
Yeah.
Or into the election, like that's when things started ending. And I think part of the reason why is because, again, talking about like 2012, 2013, it really did feel, a lot of people were convinced their vote matters to some degree.
Right.
And that, and then like so many people had such a viscerally negative reaction to Trump. And then to see him win, I think that to a significant portion of the American population that blackpilled them, mostly to leftists, But I think they were so disappointed that they could stand a George Bush, they could stand a Mitt Romney, but to see somebody like Trump, who so disregarded the political etiquette, which is exactly what was his appeal, and I get that, but. The same way that it was so appealing to a certain group of people, I think it really depressed and upset another group of people. And that's what really led to this huge divide. Yeah. And I think that rupture, before there was kind of some kind of consensus of okay, we might disagree about technicalities, but we more or less want the same thing for the country.
Yeah.
And that kind of created a rupture that showed there were two groups of people in the country who want two very different things.
Right.
And then that just led to a bunch of hopelessness, essentially.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of hopelessness that followed that, and there's just the more it ruptured, the less nuance there was in political discussions, because the ideas that people held were so diametrically opposed to one another. And I got disillusioned even with just normie politics by 2020, since I was living at my mom's house, and occasionally I would walk through the living room and go to the backyard to record a YouTube video for Tandra's Humble, and while I would walk past, there'd be like, you know, the Democratic National Convention or something, and it's a bunch of like these politicians whose names I really like can't for the life of me remember, and they're all spewing basically like the same 4 or 5 points, like I don't know, like immigration or you know like inclusion or racism or something, and like there's it's like they're all fighting for who can sound like the most virtuous in that discussion. And again, like I think that there can be more nuance among online communities, but for a discussion taking place on national TV, I was just like, man, why does anyone watch any of this? How can you take it seriously? It's like you don't get any intellectual satisfaction. It's just like a performance show meant to distract people into thinking that maybe they have some choice. I'm like, yeah, it's just whatever. And I intuitively felt this. And then like, you know, last year with you know, all of the optimism that people had because the, you know, I don't really think a lot of people were happy about Biden. Like regardless of like whether or not they're conservative or not, just like I can't afford to buy groceries. Well, whatever, it's Biden's fault, and that didn't end up changing. The United States is still really expensive, so it's like okay, it's more nuanced than that. But we wanted a scapegoat, you know, and
Yep.
and just seeing like how all of that is slowly, you know, devolved over time has made me realize that it's like what you said. Unless you're in like the top 20% of income earners, does it really matter that much?
Who's president?
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm not even gonna waste my time. I'm not even gonna waste my time. It's just like I'm not running for anything, and I don't have to pretend to be.
And it's that attitude that I'm saying is so new.
Yeah.
Like I think a lot of people have this collective now. This is like you know, especially post 2020, post 2024. There's this reaction of like, dude, it's just done. There's nothing you can do. It's over. I just think a lot of people more or less basically just sum it up with, it's over. Like,
It's
dude,
over.
I mean, this just
It's
sucks.
so over.
Whereas, like, again, just go back 10 years ago, 2014. Okay, I guess that's 11 years ago, shit. But, like, you know, 11, 12 years ago, 2013, 2014, it really, there was this genuine feeling that existed that was like, yeah, we can, like, change things for the better.
I mean,
And with our vote, no
Right.
less.
I'll be a little consistent here and bring up a little bit some of my own experiences. But like back in 2014, this is November of 2014. I was actually a very good student in school.
Yeah.
Part of the reason was my dad. If I showed a report card and I had like C's, he'd be like, "What the hell's wrong with you? I can't believe you get C's. My son's getting C's. Jesus Christ!" And I would like always have the pressure. So like I do well on the test, but I fucking like sleep through school because it was so boring. I didn't like parroting facts. But my friends were all fuck ups because those are the people who said school sucks.
Mm-hmm.
It's not worth it. And I'm like, this is my people. I just get good grades because I'm forced to.
Yeah.
And there were already doomers at that time.
Yeah.
Like my childhood best friend and their friend would just they would sit in their dad's garage and just like smoke cigarettes, smoke weed, do Oxycontin, and like, you know, I guess cocaine or whatever, because they would be like, there's nothing for us.
Yeah.
We don't do well in school. We can't go to college. Nobody cares. I'm gonna work at McDonald's. I don't want to be here. And I do specifically remember, like, at that time, there was still a little bit of, like, that pessimism that just branched out and exploded not only to people who didn't do well in school, but even to people who did.
Yeah, I mean, it is important to note, it is important to mention that there's always been people who feel like it's over for them.
Yeah.
That's not the new thing. It's not that, the new thing is not that that people think it's over. The new thing is just collectively speaking. Like, it used to be a relative minority of people.
Yeah.
And now it feels like it's the majority of people.
It's crazy, too. Like, I think that there is a collective unconscious that more and more people are actually sharing. And I guess, like, I'm contradicting myself with the positivity, but yeah.
No, well, like, on that note, I just think it's interesting how, like, a lot of people were shitting on Jeff Bezos' wedding. And, it's like, I didn't really get it, like, why he was getting shat on so much. But the essential reason why is people are like, why are you, like, so many people are financially hurting, that why are you showing off this lavish display of wealth? But if Jeff Bezos did this in 2013, I think it would have been a very different message. Because these days, most people feel like they'll never be a billionaire. Like, definitely never be a millionaire. Be a billionaire. Probably won't even be a multi-millionaire.
Yeah.
But back then, it kind of felt like, well, yeah, of course Jeff Bezos can enjoy his nice wedding. Because, like, I'll be a billionaire. And I know it sounds delusional. Like, we were no less likely to be a billionaire back then than we are now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was equally unlikely, but there was a perception, there was a positive perception of like, well, you know, like I can be, okay, if not a billionaire, I might be, I'll just start some app off my, like, with some friends and then become a multi-millionaire. Yeah. It felt like it was achievable for me, so why not let him enjoy his success? Because I could have my turn of success. And realistically speaking, you didn't really have that chance. But because you felt like that you had that chance, you know, you have been permissive of this. Right. Whereas now, we kind of have collectively realized, again, we're not. None of us are becoming billionaires.
They were hanging the carrot just low enough to think that you can reach it.
Exactly,
it's like, well, what carrot?
The perfect analogy, exactly. Like it was always an illusion, but like, we bought it for a long time, and now is enough to continue us moving. Whereas like now they threw it so far up, it's like we don't even want to move anymore. And actually, it reminds me of this thing I saw about like how apparently China is cracking down on social media influencers who display their wealth. They're cracking down on them, like they're deleting the channels, and the reason why is because the economy isn't doing so well in China, and they're scared that like as so many people are not doing well, they're going to build resentment against this privileged class who usually have high political connections. Jeez. And they're like, we don't want people rebelling, so we're just going to stop it now. We're just going to delete these social media accounts.
Damage control.
Yeah, exactly. Damage control. But like that shows so much of the perception. Like, like in a sense, things haven't changed. Right. You were not likely to become a billionaire before, and you're still not likely. But before, you were permissive of it because, again, you were like, the carrot was just close enough where you thought, like, well, maybe I could get there. Maybe. And now we were like, nobody's getting there. Fuck these guys.
There was that containment you were talking about in the mid-2010s, like 2016, not 2017 is like it's an interesting year, but like I remember when Jordan Peterson first came onto the scene, and early Jordan Peterson, pretty fucking cool, dude. Still holds up. It's just like after his episode with like the drugs, it was never the same. But before that episode,
2016, 2017, Jordan Peterson was somebody to experience.
And there were only a few things about that period of Jordan Peterson that I still don't completely agree with, and one of the ways is how he rationalized wealthy people's wealth, in that like, oh well, you know, of course this is going to happen because there's the Pareto distribution. Like 10% of the 10% of the people do 50% of the work, and of course people at the top of society should have this level of wealth. And I think like maybe he backtracked on that at some point and said, well, if it you know, becomes too great of a difference between like even the middle class and the upper class, like it destabilizes. But like, you know, for the longest time it always came off as he was rich. It's totally okay for rich people to have like $2 billion, $3 billion, $10 billion, $20 billion because they worked hard for it. They have a high IQ.
Well, what I think is funny is like actually what you're saying might actually be closer to what he was saying. Yeah. But the way I interpreted it at the time, or how I remember interpreting, is just him being like, it's just natural that there will always be like there's always going to be a top 1 to 10% who have the majority of resources. Right. And he talks about trees, it's the same with trees as it is with animals. Like there's always going to be some group of people or entities that take the majority of the resources. Yeah. Whether it's feudalism or capitalism, doesn't matter the system, there's going to be a minority of people who have the majority of the resources. And I interpret it more as like just an inevitable fact of nature, that no matter the system in play, there's going to be a minority who has the most.
Yeah, maybe I'm just sounding too much like a communist recently. You gotta be careful.
Well, I mean, even, again, like talking about communism, the Chinese party itself, Communist Party itself, is concerned about all the people getting too disgruntled. There's an open corruption that they're not closing down the corruption. They're just closing down the openness of it. Like, don't let people flaunt their wealth this much.
I like that Freudian stuff. The Chinese Party. Imagine if like there was one of those in America. The Chinese Party. It's like, vote for that one. That'll definitely work out for country. Honestly, no, the whole idea that we're getting at here is just, it's like, really, this is the future we got. This is the one. I mean, like, don't get me wrong. It feels like we're living in, maybe we're still in 2017 in this country.
Yeah, I mean, like I don't know, it is a little bit incidental because we were kind of talking about music before the cameras are rolling, but
Yeah.
like I used to be an active member in a vaporwave forum.
Oh, nice.
And if you remember vaporwave, like one of the ways people describe vaporwave, or like the appeal of vaporwave, is that it's kind of the musical form of imagining like nostalgia. Like I remember the main way people described it is nostalgia for futures that never happened. And I think that's what's so funny about the appeal of vaporwave, especially like for like the Zoomer and late millennial generation, is that we were kind of promised all these futures. Right. And we didn't get them, and again now we're talking about the present, like the past tense of the shitty future we got, and now we have all this nostalgia. We have nostalgia for the futures we were promised that we never got.
Yeah, we wanted Back to the Future, but we got dollar store Blade Runner. That's basically the best. You know, like because at least Blade Runner looks cool, and like there are flying cars, and like you have the advertisements. Like it's not even interesting. Like unless you're walking through the center of Shinjuku, you might get like 30% of that. But for the most part, no. It's all fantasy. Everything's like consumerism right now. Like one of the things I'm always constantly, what's on my mind is consumerism and capitalism makes anything a barrier over which it is necessary to surmount to make a profit. So it can be like culture, spirituality, anything, and that's why I think so much has become degenerate now, because corporations just are always trying to find the next way to make money, and no matter how low they have to stoop to make that money, and just like any kind of meaning, any kind of like sanctity, or even I don't know, like chastity is the wrong word, but like purity that we could have had is just disappearing because money. How can you?
And I mean, this might be the topic for the next video.
Yeah.
But we've talked well about this before. But this is the problem of when you have in the hierarchy of social classes, you put the merchant class on top. When traditionally the merchant class is at the bottom, even below the peasants. Like traditionally speaking, in medieval societies, in Japanese society, medieval society, like it's almost universal that the peasants were considered to be above the merchants because the merchants don't produce anything. They just move around matter and make money by manipulating perception of prices. Yeah. Whereas at least the peasants, they produce something. They help produce the crops that are necessary to keep the social order in play. And this, really, at the heart of this is the problem of when you put the merchants on top.
Yeah, that about sums it up, man. Be suspicious of your local bank. Go to a credit union. They'll treat you. Kidding. It's so fun. I can't even say that with a straight face. Well, the world ended in 2017. You have anything else you want to add?
Yeah, that's what happened.
That's it. Nothing happened. That's it. All right. Well, Scrutly Mutley.